Hello gamers, it's me, bbsmooth. Today I have some of the most exciting information that I've ever shared on this channel. The Deca gods themselves have hand-delivered me a 23-page Google document of quality of life changes and updates to Realm that I did not see coming, but it's a lot of things that people have talked about for a very long time. Deca is listening, and Deca is doing good. Now, I spoke with Akalos and Distatrix a little bit today on my stream. They're very cool people, and they deserve a little bit of respect. They deserve some positive feedback. But if you feel the need to take it upon yourself and lose your mind at losing 10 damage on your favorite weapon, or cry about your game-breaking mechanic being taken away and changed a little bit, then they are opening the Deca Discord for feedback. And they've asked that you put your feedback there once the testing server goes live this Friday. Now, there are 23 pages of information that I'm trying to get through here. I will be putting chapters and little titles, select thingies. You know how it works. It's YouTube. This is going to be a bit of a long video, maybe a little bit rambly. So, if you're curious about a specific type of item, please look for those categories down below. It's important to remember with all of these changes that there are basically more or less two types of people that play Realm. You got noobs, and you got people that have played for a long time. And, you know, sometimes there's a bit of an overlap. I'm something of a noob myself. But remember that a lot of these changes are going to be for helping new players, for, you know, doing stuff like that. Now, a lot of these changes are also to bring up items to an endgame level that were not previously there, and fix items that are incredibly problematic, like the Fungal Tome and the Sea Shield. But bbsmooth, the Sea Shield is fun, and I like it a lot. We'll get to that. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So, first off, any tumors in the chat? Some people call me a tumor, some people call me a leech, but tombs are getting a loop buff. And that's great, because there's some people that are living in the past and are saying, man, Tomb is the best dungeon ever made. I would love for that to be the endgame content once again. Well, now you have a little bit of a reason to run Tomb. Personally, I would love to see rainbow pots on the Tomb's drop table. But you could make the argument that this will now be a decent way for newer players to achieve life pots, which, you know, I could see the angle. Next up, mana drop in Ocean Trench increased, reduced room count in Mad Lab, Ocean Trench Parasite Chambers, increased drop rate of the Puppet Lab. The Puppet Lab, you know what the hell I mean. All these dungeons are going to drop more. These dungeons are going to be quicker, and these dungeons are going to have more drop chances. These are great changes. A lot of those, you know, the Ocean Trench was very much unplayed. The Tomb was very much unplayed. These are great changes so far. There's now anti-grief in the Horrific Creation. That's incredible. Mega Moth now flashes before its dash attack. Incredible. Slightly reduced Mountain Temple enemy spawns. Okay, cool. Look, these changes are sweet, man. Swarm spiders now won't one-shot you. In a pirate cave, that happened to me the other day. I'm not going to play the clip. I'm not going to embarrass myself, but it's the one time I've died in a pirate cave. Also, Calamity crabs and commotion crabs now drop patches of sand on death. I've actually seen people die trying to get their loot because it's in the water of the Deadwater docks, and that shit cracks me up every time. So they're taking that joy away from me. Ooh, the game's unplayable. Deca's bad. They're taking away my joy of seeing people die to the water. Let's take it to Reddit. All right. The Great Coil Snake, the Cage Kami, and the Scout Colony will all respawn in a realm if no players are nearby. That's sweet. That's awesome. Those were harder dungeons to find, and you could only find them once per realm, basically, in that set piece, but now that's changed. Wetlands. Oh my god, is this dungeon a nightmare for the average player? They are nerfing the enemies. This is great, because they scare me. They honestly really scare me, these enemies. I'm not even capping. But there's a lot of nerfs to Wetlands enemies. Third Dimension is getting a little bit of changes, which is nice, because that dungeon is a little bit scary too. But they reduce basically how long the dungeon will take to get to the boss. There are a lot of balance changes this time around, they say. So we're going to scroll through things very slightly, and then we'll see it later. This whole section, it basically gets expanded upon. This is just the text, so we're going to go down. Here is one of the biggest exciting changes I've ever seen in my life. The Archer is now going to be playable. Speed goes up to 55, making it viable in 03 without getting run over by every single phase. Cool. Damage on quivers is kind of tripled for tier 7 quiver, and every quiver benefits. Look, this is sick. If anybody complains about Archer getting buffs, shut up. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. This game needs a toss-up. It needs a meta shift. Welcome to Archer meta. The Mad Javelin gets a buff. This is going to be OP. It's already pretty strong. It's going to be OP. Don't tell Deca it's got to be really OP. Or do if you want to leave the feedback. The B Quiver deals a max damage of 420. Oh my goodness. Incredible. All of these quat did you say? Damage is tripled. Quiver of Shadows, another shot, less arc gap. You are shotgunning enemies. Absolutely. You get to play as Medusa, the shotgunner. Huntsman's Volley, insane buffing. Incredible. These STs also buffed. This ST also buffed. Now we get to the Huntress. We have some slight changes to the Huntress here. The designer notes that this is a moderate DPS increase at all defense levels, despite being the same total DPS stats. That's because your attack and your dex are meeting a little bit more in the middle, due to the way damage is calculated in Realm of the Mad God. When one stat is much higher than the other when it comes to attack and dex, things can get a little wonky. So making them a bit closer is actually beneficial to the class's overall DPS. Now, I personally believe that there should be no leather class with 50 speed. I think 50 speed is somewhat unplayable. And when we're talking about, classes with bows and stuff, I do believe they should be at 55. But they're very open to, feedback and changes on Huntress. That's personally my feedback. I would like to see the speed buffed a little bit as well. But you can make the argument that doesn't make Archer special. Archer's getting pretty special, let's be honest. So more into Huntress changes, the tier traps. These, I talked to Distrex. I was just gonna say Distrex. He's a cool guy. He said they're not really sure what to do with traps so far. So these damage buffs, they're temporary, like while they figure out how the heck to balance this problematic class. Because this could go from a very underplayed class to a very overplayed class if it became OP. And we know Realmers like to abuse systems that are busted, so give them some time to figure out what to do with the Huntress and the traps to figure out a healthy way. But at least we get a little bit of buffage until that point. Stars. You're all stars in this chat. All stars are getting buffs, at least slightly. Now, that also includes the Kagaboshi getting buffed, which a lot of veteran players are now saying, huh? You're buffing Kagaboshi damage, huh? Because that star is freaking OP. That star does a ton of damage. I don't have the calculation, but it's around 3,000 or something. I don't know. I pulled it out of my butt. But the other stars getting buffed is really nice. Look at these. They're almost becoming usable. The Spider Shuriken getting a buff. Ballistic Star getting a buff. That's pretty sick. Kunai getting a buff. Veteran players are probably like, huh? Once again. It's going to be okay, guys. They're open to feedback. If this ends up being busted by buffing the damage of this and Kagaboshi by 100, let them know. Skulls. This is exciting to me as a Necro enjoyer. All skulls have had their heal radius reduced from 6 to 4. Oh, baby smooth, it's a nerf. Hang on, guys. The base healing radius for Necromancers was very high, says Distatrix. In this way, we hope to rein Necromancer in on group healing so it doesn't step on Priest's toes as much, while Necromancer's healing has no diminishing value. It will be in a smaller area. This is a good change. You have to try harder to do better. It's a good change. The Necro... Do you remember the term Lagromancer from back in the day? It was because Necros could lag out everybody's game by stealing the health of a lot of enemies. Anyway, Wiz scaling on skulls, big buff. Necros now have a reason to use, like, robes with wisdom and stuff. That's pretty neat. These are higher base damages, higher Wiz scaling, higher damage scaling. This is pretty sick. Now, everything about this is great to me. Also, when I first read this, I thought this was going to be an OP as hell item, but Distatrix corrected me. He said the summon fire rate is actually going down. It's kind of like a quarter pounder being bigger than a half pounder. I said that wrong. You know what? Don't even listen to me. Next, skulls are getting buffed. This is great. I like skulls. I collect them. I have a necklace with them. Skulls are getting buffed. So is Wiz modifier. The next thing, we're giving a little bit of love to Rogue in the form of a cloak change. That's nice. Cloaks are changing a little bit. None of them are too crazy. But an interesting difference is the Cloak of Bloody Surprises, the previously unusable cloak, because the slowed effect is now getting just minus speed. Now, before you go crying, wait, why is it still minus speed? Just give it a chance. Try it on testing, see if it's a lot better. There's talk about the slowed effect and the speedy effect being way more potent than 50 speed due to the calculations and tiles and blah 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 realm mumbo jumbo that some of you might not understand. Most of us probably don't understand it. But it's the idea that 50 speed is actually less than speedy effect. If that makes sense. If you have the speedy effect, you will move faster than if you had 50 speed at different values. You know, this section's getting cut. This didn't make sense. Next. Wakizashis, Mike Wazowskis are getting buffed. Woo! Crystal stars are now summons that fire bursts of 8 projectiles as they orbit. I wonder if this will look like the bee mace a little bit. Projectiles deal 250 to 300 and explode for 3 seconds. That's pretty neat. Summons have a delay before they first shoot, so you can't spell bomb. Sounds like a good decision for balancing. Mike Wazowski of the Crossing Fires gets a little buff, blah, blah, blah. Now spells. For too long, the penetrating spell has gone unnoticed as a totally busted item for its mana cost. It was so spammable, so fun to use, and did so much damage. Now it's getting a little bit of a nerf, which is a good idea. It's getting higher mana cost. It's a good idea. Any nerf to Wizard is supported by bbsmooth. Screw Wizards. It's been 10 years of Wizard Gang being on top. You guys had your moment. Get out of here. I'm just kidding. The Wizard's not going to die from 20 increased mana cost. This just makes things more fair. The Penetrating Blast spell was very, very OP for a 65 mana cost spell. Recurring Terror, about the same. It's getting a 5 mana cost increase. This is also a good change. They were slightly cheaper than most tiered spells and felt efficient for their effects. It won't really decrease their power, but will decrease their spammability, as Distatrix says. That's a good change. Thank you. Speed Slurp is getting changed a little bit. It boosts your speed for 3 seconds instead of 2. Now on to the big change. To the most imbalanced item in the game. The Fungal Tome. This shit has... it has defined a meta. Ever since Puri Tome got changed, Fungal has been king. And it's been broken. It's been OP. And it's silly. It's time to get it out of there. It's absolutely broken. There are so many weird things that you can do with a fungal tome because it's so busted. Now, this is interesting because while some parts are getting nerfed, one thing is getting buffed. It's getting more max targets. The healing per tick is reduced. The MP cost is increased. And the range is not changing because the tooltip was upset already. The nerf to the tome is long overdue, says Distatrix. It was ignored in the original Vital Combat tome nerf and has since become far and above the best healing option, often able to out-heal entire boss patterns. Have you ever done a crystal cavern with a fungal tome? You do not have to dodge anything that will not one-shot you. It's insane. It's absolutely ridiculous. Even with a large enough, this tome should still be very powerful, but not trivializing many fights in its own. I would not be surprised if this was still broken. Like, I would absolutely not be surprised if this was still a broken item and needs further nerfs, because it's ridiculous to me. But anyway, it's great to see the item being looked at and thought about. It's great to see all these items being looked at and thought about. When was the last time somebody thought about changing things in Realm? It's been a while. Thank you, Distatrix. Tome of Holy Protection, mana cost getting nerfed. I'm sorry, buffed. It's being reduced. Necronomicon getting a little bit of a buff. I'm sure we still won't see this item ever. Same thing with Tone of Pain. We're probably never going to see it. Onto shields. Get out your Kleenex, get out your tears. It's time to cry. If you're a big baby. If you're an intellectual, you understand something about this shield. When you can be invulnerable and face tank and human decoy for over 5 seconds, something is wrong. You're creating problems for game design. Let's just read the designer note before we read the changes. Let's give Distatrix his words here. Unfortunate as it is.
Vindication.
Why did I just get a follow? It's 5 a.m. You're a degenerate, Moo 508. Thank you for the follow, though. Anyway, unfortunate as... That's so weird. Unfortunate as it is. The original design of the shield has caused more problems than it was worth. Many bosses have had to have specific design considerations added in to prevent this one item from potentially trivializing phases. While we appreciate the risk-reward it brought for the Knight user themselves, that same risk was not extended to the other players participating in the dungeon who got to benefit from the Knight acting as a human decoy. To put that in terms the average Realmer will understand. Having a Sea Shield Knight in your group was OP. That's basically the end of story. It was broken. Many fights, many phases are entirely trivialized. Now, I've already seen on Reddit people saying, but no, Sea Shield and Fungal Tomes were some of the only things that helped players get through hard mode shatters. Now you're just going to increase the amount of hackers in the game. First of all, what? Second of all, hard mode shatters is supposed to be hard. You were never supposed to be able to farm a lean crown. It's just, we're all degenerates and we did that to ourselves. The Sea Shield is being changed. It's being changed for the benefit of the game, for the glory of the game, for the future of the game. Don't you want to have cool fights that are not designed around the idea of you having a Discord member in your group with a crazy OP item? Think about this from an inclusive perspective. If they were to design fights with the idea that you need a Sea Shielder in them, people would be freaking upset. And that's all I have to say about that, basically. It's going to be great for them to not design fights around this item anymore. And I personally think it's going to be more fun. We hope this new version can still promote some risk-reward gameplay, or at least be used as a defensive tool in phases where another Knight Shield would provide no benefit. Look, let's get to the changes on it now. I think it seems pretty cool and fun. Cooldown removed. Defense to 8. On-hold effect invulnerable changed to armored. Speed penalty to -15. That's great. Instead of -30. MP cost is 40 per second. And the biggest thing, when hit while armored, retaliate by firing the shield shot. It's the same effect as the eye, basically. Shield shot damage, 220 to 300, 400. Shield shots now pierce enemies and obstacles. You can combine eye with the C shield to do incredible damage. And it's going to be sick, and it pierces enemies and obstacles. Can you imagine running through Godlands with this on? Can you imagine running through noob dungeons with this on? This is going to be awesome. This is going to be fun. Now, I know some of you are like, Baby Smooth, I just got my first C shield, and I was totally going to be a Giga Chad C shield user. You're so insensitive, and I hate you. I'm just going to say it. Shut up. You're a bozo. Grow up. This change is necessary. You can still have an Oreo. You can still have your invulnerability. But it's a bad game element to have to worry about this while designing. This is an incredibly necessary change. Absolutely necessary. Deal with it, okay? The rest of these changes are very beneficial to everybody. The few people that this impacts. Okay, listen, I'm going to say it. There's a few people that this impacts. It's the people that think they're good at the game, but need a C shielder in their group as a crutch for beating this harder content. That's it. The best players in this game have already said, yeah, that's a necessary change. If you don't believe me, look at Reddit. The literal goated players have already said, yeah, that's necessary. The people that are crying, you stink. And it's okay to stink, but hold your tears. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna eat your tears if you... Don't make me eat your tears. All right, moving on. The Spiteful Scudum gets a little bit of a change. That's pretty neat. Sunken Buckler changes. Snakeskin Shield. 2 speed buff, boys. Woo! Now, Distrix did explain his design choice with some of these lower quality items like the Snakeskin Shield, and you'll see later some of the rings. He wants these newbie items to be a bit more bridging the gap to the OP items, and I think that's great. For far too long have we had 03 tops being the best items by far. It's time to bridge the gap, and by no means is a Snakeskin Shield going to be meta ever, but it's helping newer players out, and that's incredibly necessary. Loots. Snake Charmer Punji, cooldown removed. Not many changes to loots. Art's pretty cool. Helmets. People have been thinking about Visage for a while and thinking the item sucks. Visage finally gets a necessary buff and is gonna be sick. Some people are like, damn, Visage still sucks in my chat earlier today. No, it probably doesn't. It's getting its damage increased by 50 per shot. I don't remember how many shots there are, but that's pretty good. And the mana cost reduced. This is going to be a fun item to use. I don't know if this is going to be broken or not. I can't say straight up if it's broken or not. At the end of the day, this might be the slight change it needs to be balanced, to be a good item, to be usable. People have been shitting on this item for far too long. Hive Mind Mace, XP bonus reduced. B, projectile speed increased. That's pretty neat. And they fixed the rotation speed. Wands. Save your tears, guys. Lumi damage is getting nerfed. Now, I know you're already crying about this, but shut up. You didn't use the Lumi right anyway to begin with. A 10 damage nerf to the Lumi is not a big deal. It's still the top damage wand by a lot. If anyone wants to crunch the numbers, I guarantee it's still out damaging everything by far and it's good. Now, feel free to prove me wrong. But I've looked at some damage charts. I'm not going to put them on screen because it was kind of janky math calculations. This is still out-damaging everything if you're somewhat proficient with the weapon. Luminaire was designed with a staggeringly high damage output coupled with a pretty rough downside. As time went on, it was clear that the downside was not as hard to deal with as originally assumed. This wand outdamages every option by an insane amount, and after this nerf, it will sit comfortably at the top, just with less of a gap below that. Perfect. Nerfing O3 items? Perfect. Nerfing items that have been OP for far too long? Perfect. Good change. If you disagree, you're welcome to your opinion, even though it's cringe. Soul's Guidance. Once again, something that was OP that, people kind of knew that was OP, but now it's finally getting dealt with. This thing was really busted. While rather unassuming, this wand actually had an insane amount of damage output with the average amount of souls sustained. Though inconvenient to corral the souls to where you wanted, if you use this item well, it would easily outclass every wand short of Lumi without any sort of gear investment. Insanely true. While this nerf is very steep, it will now accurately reflect the level of content it comes from, rather than substantially outclass it. And should be a very solid DPS option for builds that are not bringing attack or dex to the table. Cool. This thing was OP, it's getting nerfed. You have to deal with it. You have to move on with your life. There are more items to be used, such as the Wand of the Fallen, the Crystal Wand, and the St. Abe's Wand gaining multi-hit. Dab, dab, dab. Just kidding. This thing looks like it shoots sperms. It's kind of funny. Cool. Little buffs to other wands, nerfs to wands that were broken. Those are great changes to me. Daggers. Corruption Cutter getting a nerf. It's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be okay. Now, this is one thing that you could cry about a little bit. This nerf should bring it down and make it more appropriate to its drop location. Feel free to cry if you want, but the Corruption Dagger being one of the best daggers, if not the best dagger, in an armor break situation, absolutely. Dropping in a library, it seems like Deca is trying to balance the playing field on where you are getting these items and how powerful they can be. So I think that's a fine change. Ripper's getting a little bit of a buff. That's good. Nobody was using it ever. Swords. Welcome to the Crystal Sword meta, guys. Crystal Sword is on top. Just kidding. Nobody's going to use it still, but look, that's a nice buff. The sword was a joke for a long time. Now it's a bit less of a joke. Put some respect on its name. Sea Sword, baby. The axe gets a little bit of a buff. That's pretty neat too. Indomitable. Indomitable gets a bit of a buff. Cool. Fallen One's Blade, a bit of a buff. Dalvar's Battle Axe, a bit of a buff. Hang on. Okay, everybody go on Reddit and ask for more dagger buffs. Can we have dagger buffs? Dagger classes kind of suck. Well, Trickster's kind of good-ish, but other dagger classes suck. Okay, that's all I have about that. More dagger buffs. Anyway, Katanas. Quartz Cutter gets a buff. That's nice. That was kind of annoying to use. And the Scythe gets a bit of a buff. That was also annoying to use. That's good. They're making items that are annoying less annoying. Tai Chis get a buff. Once again, nobody's using Tai Chis. Fire rate is getting brought down. Damage increase to reach slightly higher max damage and scale better on defense with the fire rate reduction. So it's like a bit of a sideways buff, a little bit. Remove pattern swap, fire pattern changed on burial blades. Maybe they're cool now. Who knows? Armors, protective matrices are getting a buff. This is sick. They're going to proc at 30% HP, and they're going to be only a 90-second cooldown. That means the alien set can save your life more than once per dungeon. That's dope. I think that's cool, especially for how long it's going to take you to get these alien sets. It's a bit of a grind. But the alien sets are pretty fun to use for a lot of classes. This is a great change. Robes. Vesture of Duality. I can smell the tears already on this one as well. The speed is being changed from 10 to 5. Distatrix's note was, though this change may seem out of nowhere, It seemed appropriate to lower the status of this robe so it's not the most DPS robe and the best speed robe at the same time. I think that's a valid change. I think Vesture is a little bit busted. People can cry about the defense, you know, blah, 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 for the attack, blah, blah, blah. It's busted. You know Vesture's busted. Diplo robe is getting changed. It may look like a nerf to you, but Distatrix himself said it was a bit of a sideways buff. So on hit proc is being changed to on ability proc, and the cooldown is being increased to 8 seconds. So the portal damage is getting halved, but let's be honest, if you were using a Diplo robe, you were not close enough to your enemy that your portal would be doing damage anyway. This change should make the proc of this robe actually something you seek to use and benefit from. The new portal appears on the cursor rather than your current location, which makes utilizing it much easier. As such, the damage from the portal needed to be toned down a little. This is great. You are now having more interactivity, more decision making about how you are producing your damage. Even if it's just a little bit, I think that's a great change for the game, a great direction. Moving towards the direction of meaningful interactivity of your items and the buttons you're pressing is great. Cool. Chasuble of Holy Light getting a bit of a buff, if you ask me. These early game robes changing. Changing. It's time for change. Like I mentioned before, look, they may not be the biggest changes, but they're changes, and change is good. Change is great. Some of these early baby robes are going to be usable. Now, Mad Scientist gets a little bit of a debuff because it definitely needs it. That MP discount is pretty OP for where you get it, once again. Espen's Shaman attire actually going to become an interesting robe, if you ask me. But I'm just a UPE enjoyer. Snakeskin armor. Increased to 4 speed. Nice. Nice, bro. I love snake pits. I'm a big snake pit, man. Armor of Nil. Still unusable, but, you know, now you're a tank. That's pretty dope. Rags of the Host getting a little bit of a change as well as Hollow Hide giving you some HP. While wearing Rosary when hit below 50% gain the healing effect. That's pretty neat. They're making the vampire vampire-y. And we go to Royal Guards Cuirass. Cuirass. I never said this item right. But guys, once again, before you cry, remember that invulnerability is one of the most broken effects in this game. It allows you to, like, not abide by the laws of the game. And I've already seen people going, but dude, the Cuirass allowed melees to push in on the shatters, man, and do DPS. Listen here, fucko. This item needs a nerf. And this is a slight nerf. If you think this is the end of your world, the end of your life as you know it, you might have a skill issue. Or 10, if you identify as an elite Discord raider and you're upset by this change to the point of having a meltdown, a tantrum, I have bad news. You are not the elite raider that you thought you were. You suck. You suck. You suck. It's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be all right. Invulnerability's OP. Moving on. Zavrox's Heart, little bit of a speed change. Fire Dragon Battle Armor getting put on the map again. Maybe. It's getting more speed, it's getting more vit. But the big thing is it's getting its proc reduced on the cooldown. You'll put out some more damage. Cool. Could be nice. Could be a nice change here. Rings. We're going to crystallize Mist here. And this is a cool change to me. This ring is used when rushing on classes that can't stealth. The cooldown's getting taken down lower, and the damage threshold is being reduced as well. So you can now stealth in places that you couldn't before. Now we get to some of my favorite changes, the noob-friendly changes. Fairy Ring. More stats. New proc. Chance to summon a fairy to heal you for 15 HP per second for 10 seconds. This is awesome. This is gonna be one of the greatest, like, helping noob rings ever. I'm about to start stocking up on fairy rings. I'm going to start giving them to the baby noob homies, because when you're a noob, you got no pet, right? You got no way to get your health back. This is sick. I love this idea. I love this effect. A chance to summon a fairy to heal you. It's almost as if they're bridging the need for a pet for people that, like, basically don't have a way to have a good pet. I love this idea. I'd love to see more of this. Bridge that gap. Help players that are new recover their MP, recover their HP, even if it's out of combat stuff. Speed up that game process for them a little bit. That's awesome. That's great. Spider Eye Ring. You're getting an XP bonus, guys. Woo! And an increase in the proc radius. Snake Eye Ring. XP bonus, baby. Amulet of Dispersion. Increased stats. Crystal Bone Ring with an interesting proc. Nobody's going to use this still, but on shoot, 5% chance to restore MP. That's sick. Once again, for new players, for baby noobs, this is great. But I would love to see a buff to this, to have an increased effect, but not making it so OP that veterans will abuse the ring. Might be difficult. Who knows? There's going to be somebody out there that calculates the Crystal Bone Ring as being worth it if it were to be a 10% chance or more MP, blah, blah, blah. Core Ring has an MP discount of 10%, and the Captain's Ring gets an HP buff. Ring of Divine Faith, getting some buffs. And the Killbilly set, getting some much-needed nerfs. So the Killbilly set has been problematic because using the helmet and the armor and the ring was equivalent to using, like, endgame set as long as you had a decent weapon. This is getting changed, and that's good, in my opinion. It's getting a little bit of a nerf. Unless I'm an idiot. Yes, it is. It's getting the decks basically moved to the final piece. Cool. Honestly, guys, that's the end of the 23 pages. If you made it all the way, incredible job. Please, once again, please, this is a message to everybody, a heartfelt message. Distatrix, Akalos, and whoever the hell at Deca is working hard on the game right now. In your engagements with them, in your interactions, be respectful, be intellectual. Think about what you're saying before you waste their time with babying. Don't be a baby, says bbsmooth. Unless you are a baby, then whatever. Just, think about what you're saying. Think about how these things affect the game. I guarantee you, Distatrix's job is to think about these balance changes, and I think he's doing a good job. If you disagree, once again, you can put the feedback in the Discord on Friday when the changes go live, but I very much recommend you use your critical thinking before you make any form of critique. Thank you, guys. This has been bbsmooth. It's been a lot of talking, so I'm going to get the heck out of here. I hope you guys have a great time. Remember to stop in for a stream. I will be testing this stuff on Friday, Thursday, who knows. And I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Have a good one, gamers. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. I'm going to be doing some cool stuff coming up. See you later.